Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for being here. My name is Andrew, coming to you from the beautiful Carolinas. Today's topic is going to be when you thought it was fixable. Think about that for a minute. Everyone, if you like the content, please like, subscribe, and share. So when you were in that relationship, the whole time you thought it was fixable. Not from the beginning, because the beginning was when you were in that love bomb / euphoric stage. That's when everything seemed to be puppies and rainbows and unicorns and butterflies, and you had just entered the most amazing, fantastic relationship you had ever been a part of. Again, that was all smoke and mirrors. That was the narcissist wearing a mask, manipulating you, getting as close to you as they possibly could get before they infiltrated your life and took everything they possibly could from you. But once the love bomb / euphoric stage ended, you entered the devaluation stage, which is the second stage of the narcissistic abusive cycle. Again, you weren't taught this in school, so how could you know you would be devalued? But how could you know that the beginning of that relationship was the love bomb stage? You couldn't, and you weren't supposed to figure it out, but you did. Now, when you were being devalued, this is when you no longer were the cute little person they were laughing at all your jokes. This isn't the person they were holding your hand. This isn't the person that they were answering the phone call on the first ring. It's not the person that would be there for you when you texted immediately. It's not the person that would be there waiting for you outside of your house to pick you up. You see, all that stuff was to set the hooks into you. And once the narcissist sank their dirty hooks into you, or their dirty fangs, whatever you want to call them, then they began to pull back. And that's when you were existing in that devaluation stage. Now, when you were being devalued, that's when you were working for the narcissist and you were working on the relationship. You were doing things you never thought you would do. You were behaving ways you never thought you would behave. You were tolerating behaviors you never thought you would tolerate. And you were making excuses for the narcissist. And the reason why you were making the excuses and all the aforementioned things are because you didn't know what you know now. And you were caught up in a place called the trauma bond. And that trauma bond is as real as all of the beautiful birds and foliage behind me. The trauma bond is a place you don't want to be. But again, that's where you were existing. And you didn't know how you got there, but what you did know is you were trying to fix the relationship. You thought the relationship was fixable. So as time went on and the narcissist kept on micro discarding you, blowing up your days, your weeks, your job, your hobbies, your purpose, your belief in yourself, your focus, your sleep, your relationships, your money, everything, as they were blowing those things up or taking them from you, you kept on giving to a fault. Now, maybe you were a people pleaser. Perhaps you are an empath. I can assure you a few things. You did not have boundaries, and you didn't know how to say no, the strongest word in the English language. Remember, when you say no to something or someone, you are saying yes to yourself. But back then, you didn't know what you know now. You didn't have the wisdom. You definitely didn't know what narcissism was. And you were a pawn or a puppet. You were an indentured servant. You were the walking apology. You were the walking ATM, and you were the unpaid helper among many other hats that you wore to keep that relationship in place. Now, while you were working so hard for the relationship and for the narcissist, they were looking for your replacement. Now, many times people say it's a little rough, Andrew. Well, I'll tell you right now, if you were in the narcissistic relationship, you know what I'm talking about. It not only is it a little rough, yes, but it's real. That's why I create videos each and every day, to give you a dose of reality, because this is something we can't sugarcoat. This is your life. This was my life. Now, having said that, when you're in the relationship and you don't know what narcissism is, and you think the relationship is fixable, this is when you will be given the silent treatment for a day or two or the weekend, and you will go apologize to the narcissist for something you never did, or you didn't do, or you don't even know why you're apologizing. And why you would do that is because they were holding their breath, and they were waiting for you, as you were being punished, to come crawling back to them and apologize. You see, the narcissist is a master manipulator, and they had played that waiting game, or the silent treatment game, with you and many other people before they met you. And they can hold their breath as long as they need to, because they don't care about people. They only care about what people provide. But back then, when you didn't know what the narcissist was doing with the silent treatment, you would apologize to them, and you would say, hey, can we just sit down and talk, and can we just make up, or can we just at least, spend some time together or work on what we were discussing? And then the narcissist would look at you, and they would be scratching their head or be looking at you, and their big pupils would be swelling with supply like beach ball blackness. But you didn't know that back then, so you didn't know what to look for. But they would be saying to themselves in their little brain, they'd be saying, yep, did it again. I have this person. They're caught up so deep and they don't even know where they are. And I know exactly which buttons to press. And now the silent treatment works, so I'll put that in my back pocket. and I'll do it again when I need to, or when I need to get something from them, or when I disappear and have a romantic weekend with the new supply, claiming that I'm at a seminar, and I'll keep you stuck in the house. This is what the narcissist does. It's what they were doing before they met you, and it's what they're doing right now. But back then you were thinking that the relationship was fixable because perhaps you were in love with the narcissist. Maybe you got married to the narcissist. Maybe you had children with the narcissist. Maybe it was a long-term relationship. Maybe it was your adult child who turned out to be the narcissist. Maybe it was your sibling. Maybe it was your coworker or your colleague or a person that you were in a hobby group or community with. But eventually you kept on giving to a fault, and you kept on giving them mulligans or giving them chances, and you were turning a blind eye, and you were not trusting your instincts or trusting your intuition. You were ignoring red flags, and you were doing whatever the narcissist wanted you to do, whether you knew it or not. Now again, I'm going to go back to the trauma bond for a minute. If you were in it, you know what I'm talking about. Being in that is the most debilitating state of mind you could experience known to humanity, because you don't know how you got there. You feel compelled to be communicating with the person who turns out to be your abuser. You feel sorry for them. You are feeling that you could have done more, and you're giving them all of your energy and time. But when you're caught up there and you're not focusing on yourself, this is where the narcissist wants you. Think of a term called Stockholm Syndrome. Look it up. If you don't know what that is, it will open your eyes. And if you were in the trauma bond for a period of time, this will resonate with you. But once you understand finally that the narcissist doesn't want to improve the relationship, that they want to break it over and over and over again, and they want to try to destroy your life, your relationships, your hobbies, health, your money, everything, your purpose. And yes, that is not being a little rough. That's being realistic. This is what these people want to do. But when you realize that and you wrap your head around what narcissism is, then you have to really slow things down. And this usually happens post-relationship. Now, some people figure it out when they're in the relationship. Many of us figured out, of the small amount of people of us that figured it out, many of us figured out when we were out of the relationship. This is why the healing path, and this is why figuring it out is so challenging, because when you wrap your head around what narcissism is, because you weren't taught it in school, and you find that needle in a haystack, you've now found the key to humanity. You've now found the key to your soul. You've now found the key that will unlock all the chains that were tied to you invisibly, emotionally, spiritually, financially, mentally, every way possible. And how you break those chains, or the four ties, which are the emotional, financial, physical, and spiritual tie, is when you understand and practice radical acceptance that that person never cared about you. They only cared about what you provided. Having said all of these things, there will be a moment in time, either when you are in the relationship, and that's a very, very small group of people, or when you're out, you will realize that you can't fix the relationship. It's unfixable, because you were and or are in a relationship with a person who doesn't know how to introspect. They don't know how to apologize and mean it. They can't put themselves in your shoes. They don't know what empathy is. They don't know how to love. All they do know how to do is take from other people. People that are where? That's right, that are caught up in the trauma bond, or people who are giving them more and more chances, or people who haven't gone no contact, or people who haven't healed, or people who haven't figured out what narcissism is. And that's a very large amount of people right there. But that's not who you are. You see, you figured it out. You cracked the code, and you're understanding now that you were and or are in a relationship that's unfixable. When you have two people, two healthy, stable, loving, kind, empathetic human beings, and they're in a relationship, could be a friend, romantic, could be in a family setting, but you have two people, whoever they are, and they're willing to put their ego aside, not judge people, sit down and communicate in a healthy manner. And if the other person disagrees, they can take that and say, yeah, you know, I never thought about it that way. Good point. I'll consider that. But you have two people that are working together. Well, that is a good relationship. When you have one person who is doing all of the work, all of the apologizing, all of the explaining, all of the defending, all being abused emotionally, financially, physically, energetically, every way possible, and the other person doesn't want to lift a finger to improve the relationship, that is not the relationship you want to be in. And there is your toxic, narcissistic relationship in a nutshell. You see, the narcissist doesn't want to improve themselves. They go through life like a ticking time bomb, like a bull in a china shop, and they want to destroy. They don't want to create. They want to divide. They don't want to build. They don't want to do anything other than keep people trapped in that low vibrational quagmire state, which is the narcissistic fog. And that can be interchanged with the trauma bond, and it can be interchanged with the devaluation stage. They're all unique to themselves, but they all fit like a hand in a glove. Now, when you were in that relationship, again, you didn't know what you know now, but now that you know it, you understand that you need to get away from these people as far and as fast as you possibly can. Because when you are in a relationship with the other person and they turn out to be toxic, maybe even narcissistic, and they don't want to improve themselves, and they're always blaming you or gaslighting you or giving you the silent treatment or popping up every couple of months and acting like nothing ever happened, that their poor behavior never took place. When these things take place over and over and over again, eventually a couple things happen. One, you continue to get worn out. Two, they continue to have access to you and they know it. Three, they continue to stay stuck in that loop and try to trap you in that loop to take as much from you as they possibly can. I'll give you an example in a moment. But four, and most importantly, these people get worse over time. They only deteriorate. They do not improve. There is not one narcissistic individual in the history of humanity that has improved as they got older. They all become the aging narcissist. And what is the aging narcissist? That's right. They are not a pretty sight to see. These are the people that can't get supply like they used to when they were in their 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s. These are the people that are wearing clothes from 3 generations ago. These are the people that are using words from 50 years ago. These are the people that nobody wants to be around, including their own children, their spouses, their siblings, maybe even their parents if they're alive, because they burned so many bridges and they've done so much damage to other people that nobody wants to be around the aging narcissist. So what do these people do? They stay stuck, relegated, abusing people on airplanes, abusing people who are taking care of them in facilities, abusing people at checkout lines, abusing people in the grocery store, abusing people in cars, abusing people who visit them, abusing anyone they can during any holiday, birthday, celebration, or graduation, because this is what the narcissist does. The narcissist cannot have the spotlight on anybody other than themselves, and if the spotlight's on somebody else other than themselves, they will look to destroy or ruin or take away from that moment or that day or that period of time. That's why I go back in time. When you went on vacation with the narcissist, was it fun? Absolutely it wasn't. Was there stress and drama and confusion and chaos? Yes, there was. Did you spend any quality time with the narcissist? I doubt it. Were they off as soon as they could unpack their gear in the hotel room, off looking for your replacement, or off on a smartphone arranging dating rendezvous that they had when they were preparing to go on whatever destination you went to? Yes, they did. They did that and way, way worse. The thing is, you don't know exactly where they were when they weren't with you, but when they were with you, even then they weren't with you mentally. They may have been with you physically, but they were checked out looking for what or whom? That's right, your replacement. That's why nobody is safe in these relationships. That's why they all end. That's why they all have an expiration date. And that's why the relationship you were a part of is unfixable, whether you know it or not. You see, the narcissist wants to destroy. They want to consume. They want to chew up and spit out. They want to crumble people up like a sheet of paper and throw them away in the freeway, hoping that those people never deduce who they were, hoping those people never figure out what narcissism is, and hoping that those people stay stuck in the trauma bond, pining or thinking about the narcissist. And that is the majority of the people, unfortunately, that were in the narcissistic abusive cycle. But you're one of the fortunate ones. You're one of the resilient ones. You're one of the courageous ones. You are a strong individual. You're intelligent. You're full of fortitude. And you have cracked the code. Yes, I'm repeating myself on purpose because you need to understand you have keys to parts of humanity that very few people have. Very few people have. You've gone through the cycle, or you're ending the cycle, or you're maybe still in it, you're understanding what kind of relationship you're in. Any way you cut it, you need to wrap your head around the fact that that person is only getting worse. Go back in time from the minute you met them till this very moment. Have they improved? No, they haven't. And you know I'm right, because right now you're sitting there with your jaw down in disbelief saying, how does this guy Andrew know all these things? Well, I lived it, and I know exactly what these creatures do. They all use the same playbook. Now you're understanding that. But having said that, back before you knew what narcissism was, you thought that the relationship was fixable. And then narcissists knew that that's what you thought, which is why they kept stringing you along, future faking you, telling you that A, B, and C will happen when X, Y, and Z takes place, and we can get the trip to Rome or Paris or Italy or whatever in 2 years after you put me through medical school, etc. You see, it's all about them. It's never about we. It's about me. And now you're understanding what the narcissist is capable of. And now you realize that you need to get away from that person or these people as far as you possibly can. You also recognize that that relationship was unfixable. You could not have fixed it. You could not have stayed in that relationship 1 minute longer than you already were in it. Many times people will say to me during one-on-one sessions, is there something else I could have done? Should I have done more? Could I have done more? what could I have done? I mean, I could have stayed in it longer. Well, think for a quick moment. Why would you want to be in it longer once you have the wisdom? You wouldn't. You want to get away from those people as far as you possibly can. Again, go back to the trauma bond. When you're in the trauma bond, you don't know any better. All you're doing is being consumed by the dark energy force, which is the narcissist, and they know it. They know that they placed you in a mental dungeon of horrors, that you're thinking about them, you're pining for them. You want to talk to them or text them because you think they have the cure, you think they have the answers, you think they're going to give you closure. They're going to give you nothing but more gaslighting, nothing but phones being slammed on you or hung up on you, nothing but being blamed, nothing but being triangulated, nothing but more financial abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, which is a huge one. Verbal abuse doesn't get the credit it deserves, which means verbal abuse does damage, real damage, as do the other abuses. But verbal abuse should not be tolerated by one person for the rest of their life. Verbal abuse does more damage than people know. Now, having said all those things, when you thought the relationship was fixable, or you thought it was fixable, it's because you didn't know what you know now. Now you know that these people, i.e. the narcissist, they just break any relationship they can. And it includes with their children, with their siblings, with their parents, of course, their spouses in romantic relationships, and their besties of 10, 20, 30 years, and their people that they work with, or the people that they work for, whomever. This is what they do because they feel that they're entitled, they feel they're superior, they feel they're smarter, they feel that they'll never get called out, they feel that no one will ever figure out who they are or what they've done. But time is ticking for the narcissist, and people on the planet, and you are one of them, are becoming awakened and aware, educated and empowered, and you're realizing that you don't have any room in your life any longer for toxicity or narcissism or drama or manipulation or lying or cheating or stealing or verbal abuse. That's why you're here getting your cup full. That's why you're recognizing that where you were is not where you are, or where you were is not where you want to be, or where you are is where you want to be, or where you are is not quite where you want to be. But the point is, you need to stay on the healing path. You need to continue to become awakened and aware, educated and empowered. You need to understand that if you are trying to fix a relationship with the narcissist or a toxic person, it's not fixable. Tough pill to swallow, but it's real. These people are stuck in a loop of misery, stuck in a loop of manipulation, and stuck in a tiny little pea-brained mindset thinking that they can get you to do whatever they want you to do. So before I close the video, I'll share this. Maybe your son or daughter is the adult, your adult child, and maybe they're asking you for money, or to buy them a car, or to put a roof over their head, or pay their cell phone bill, whatever. Well, if that person, your child who's an adult, and that they're toxic, if they have money and they can hold down a job, well, can't they pay for their own things? Of course they can. But you know what? They're trying to keep you stuck. They're trying to guilt you and blame you and say that, oh, you had it so good when you were a kid and you have so much money, you should be able to give them some of that. That is not healthy. That's not a healthy mindset. So eventually you will, if you haven't already, had to cut ties with that adult child. Again, you're going to do it in your time when you need to. But remember, the narcissist loves money. And what do they love more than money? They love your money. And when your money runs out, so will the narcissist. And they will sit back and laugh and say, yeah, you used to have so much money, now you have nothing. And this is what they want to do. They want to take the best from whatever that person has, whatever the resources are, which does include money, and they want to leave them absolutely nothing in return other than a relationship to heal from. So everyone, that's the video. I hope you liked it. I loved doing it from the absolutely beautiful Carolinas. This is Andrew. Namaste. Have a great afternoon, evening, or morning. No matter where you are on the planet, you are not alone. I love y'all. God bless you. I love y'all, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And remember, when you were in the relationship, you thought it was fixable. We all did, because you didn't know what you know now. When the relationship ended, and let's say you were discarded, you also thought it was fixable. You thought that the narcissist would be back. Again, you didn't know what narcissism was, but you thought they'd be back, and you go back, and just like you used to do all the time, go back for another round or another cycle, whatever it was. But you didn't know that all of these relationships have an expiration date, and some people think they don't. Well, you may want to think again, because they all do. And when that relationship finally ended, which ended not with a micro discard, but a macro discard, that's when you really realized that, wow, this relationship did damage to me, I need to heal. That's why you need to get your cup full. That's why you need to maintain your boundaries. That's why you need to have a small footprint. That's why you need to not overshare information. And that's why you need to stop trying to fix a relationship that is unfixable. I love you all. God bless you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Enjoy the day. It is so beautiful here, and I hope this video was a little more quiet because I found a great space. Love y'all. Bye.